Hello everyone, myself Deepak Kumar and my LinkedIn profile and my job profile were these. And today we are gonna talk about WordPress vulnerability assessment, tools, techniques, and real world approach. First, agenda. What we are gonna see. First, what is WordPress VA? Attack surface, vulnerability assessment phases, tools used for VA, and the real world scenario. First, what is vulnerability assessment? Vulnerability assessment is a finding an open services or misconfiguration or any outdated services which runs on their websites. Its definition. Vulnerability assessment is a process of identifying, analyzing, and prioritizing security weakness in system, application, or network, or any other. It identifies open doors. Unlike the pen test, it do not attempt to walk through it, which means we should not exploit the weakness or the vulnerabilities we found. It only focuses on detecting the vulnerabilities without exploiting them. The main aim is to find the vulnerability or any misconfiguration is found on our system, application, or the network. Our goal is to provide visibility into potential risk. We have to only find the potential risk which are in our systems or applications. We should not be able to exploit them. And next, what are the vulnerability assessment phases? The first step, preparation and reconnaissance and footprinting. And next, vulnerability scanning and analysis and identification. At last, reporting and remediation. First, preparation. In preparation, we have to define scope, goals, and what are the methodologies we have used, gather resources, and obtain necessary permissions. At scope, we have to define our scope, such as IPs, and what are the IPs we have to assessment, and define our goals. What are we have to do and what should we have not to do, and methodology. In which approach we are going to done this vulnerable assessment, and gather the resources and necessary permissions, which from the client side or the owner of a auditing website or any other networks or systems. Reconnaissance and footprinting. Reconnaissance, gathering information about the target system and potential attack vectors, passively identify assets, which means we have to gather the information of the targets or our client on what are the services they are providing and what kind of website is it and all, and the potential attack vectors, which means what are the possibilities of attacks can be possible in that website or the network which we are going to test. By seeing the potential attacks, it can be easy to assess the vulnerabilities which may be possible for attackers to exploit them. Our main goal is to prevent the attacks from the attackers before they are exploiting it. Passively identify assets. And next, vulnerability scanning. Vulnerability scanning is the automated scanning or manual scanning in which it's using tools to identify known vulnerabilities, CVs, in system, application, and services. In this, CVs mean common vulnerabilities exposures, which are already exposed or noted. By using the automated tools, we are able to find those kind of vulnerabilities in our system or application. Analysis and identification. In analysis, we have to analyze the results to confirm which is vulnerable or false positives and assesses potential impact and severity. By the result, we have to confirm the vulnerabilities or any outdated versions or any unpatched or misconfigured services which are open. And after that, you have to filter out the false positives and you have to analyze the outputs or results of one or two other automated tools and by our manual testing to assess the potential impact and their severity. And last, reporting and remediation. The reporting is the main thing we have to do in vulnerability assessment. Document finding in a detailed report with prioritized remediation steps. Fix vulnerabilities and rescan to verify. At first, we have to prioritize the vulnerabilities according to the level of their severity, which means critical, high, medium, low, and info. According to that, we have to provide a remediation steps to fix those vulnerabilities and rescan to verify whether the vulnerability is fixed or not. We are going to see these steps in clear. At first, preparation. Objective. Establish a clear scope and strategy before starting the assessment, and ensure testing is authorized, safe, and aligned with objectives. At first, we have to clear our scope and strategy before starting assessment, in which our scope area of the website we are going to audit, and the strategy we are going to use. What are the methods and what are the techniques and what are the tools we are going to implement for this vulnerability assessment, and ensure testing is authorized, safe, and aligned with objectives, which we have to use the industry recognized tools and safety measures without exploiting them in vulnerability assessment. And scope identification. We have to identify target assets, which are the domains and subdomains, and what they are, what are the IPs they are using, either a static IP or a dynamic IP. And we have to find the subdomains and the directories, and we have to access all their URL parameters to verify if there is any SQL injection or any excesses, which is cross-site scripting, and the IP addresses of it and WordPress instances. There any WordPress instances are present in the website. Define in-scope versus also out-of-scope components. It is most important in vulnerability assessment. We have to be specific in scope and out scope. In scope, what are all things we are going to do, and what are all the tools we can use, and what are the activities we can be performed in that website. In out scope, they will be mentioned which should not be done in their website, or the client specified rules which are not to be violated. And next, authorization and compliance. Authorization. Authorization means you have to obtain the written permission from the client to start a vulnerability assessment or any activities doing without their permission. It will be unethical or illegal. You have to follow the legal and organizational policies which are all mentioned for the assessment, and define testing boundaries. We have to define the testing boundaries where we have to do what we have to do, and what are the kind of activities we are allowed to perform in that audit. Next is reconnaissance and fingerprinting. At reconnaissance, in reconnaissance there are two types of reconnaissance, which is passive recon and active recon. In passive recon, we have to gather the information without direct interaction, stealthy and hard to detect. By using the passive, we should not interact with the server or their database. We have to gather the information without affecting their network or disturbing their architecture, and it is hard to detect that we are gathering their information. And inactive recon involves direct interaction with the target, provides a real-time data, but is easily detected. By doing an active recon, it directly interacts with the website or the server, which provides our accurate data and the real-time data which are all currently running in that website, and it can be detected by the server or WAF, which is web application firewall. Technology fingerprinting. In technology fingerprinting, we have to detect what are the technologies they are using, such as WordPress version. WordPress version, what WordPress version they are using, and what are the active themes they are installed, and their installed plugins and tools used. Tools for detecting these technologies in their website, we can use WordWeb or Vaporizer, which is a browser extensions. We can add it, and we can able to find it in the browser. And enumeration. In enumeration, you have to find the user enumeration and endpoint discovery. And user enumeration can able to find author ID and login usernames. If we can able to find these are all in the enumeration, and it may be vulnerable, and we can conclude the severity of those usernames and author IDs according to the severity of it. And endpoint discovery. By searching these parameters in the WordPress on their WordPress website, we can able to see the wp login.php, and we can see the login page of their website, and which can be used for attackers to brute force them using the user IDs they have enumerated, and the password if weak or or weak passwords, the attackers can able to easily compromise into their system. And another things were XML or PC.php, and wp.json, which are all able to find the endpoint discovery. And vulnerability scanning. In vulnerability scanning, what to scan are the common tools used and WordPress specific checks. What to scan? For WordPress, we have to detect the WordPress core version on what version they are using, that the version is currently updated and they are using the latest version, or it is an outdated versions. If they are using the outdated versions, or the outdated versions are not using the current version, it may be leads to the CVEs, which is common vulnerabilities which are happen which are exploited on that version, which is easy to the attackers to exploit them. Install the plugins and themes. In WordPress website, there are in plugins and themes installed. We have to figure out what are the themes they are using and what are the plugins they are added and how they are configuring it using their own plugins or themes or the default WordPress themes. If the default WordPress themes and plugins are used, the attacker can be easily detect them and attacks using the default credentials from the WordPress websites. Open endpoints and exposed files. You have to scan for any open endpoints are found in that websites and any exposed files. If the file contains the sensitive information, it may be lead to a severe it may lead to the severe attacks by the attacker or an hacker. Server misconfiguration. We have to scan the servers for the misconfiguration if it is allowing and if it is rate limited or it is allowing any cross-site scripting or SQL injection. If it happens, the system or the website can be compromised by an hacker, and you have to check for the security address and SSL issue, which is more important for encrypted format transferring of data from the user to clients on the server. And common tools. And the most commonly used automated tools were Nessus and OpenOS. Nessus is a industry standard for deep configuration and patch audits. And OpenOS. OpenOS is a powerful open source alternative for comprehensive scanning. Moreover, these two tools were commonly used and they are less false positive. We have to check with those two results or outputs from these tools. We have to compare the results from those automated tools and we have to check it manually to reduce the false positive if there is any false positives or any missed vulnerabilities found. And in WordPress specific steps, the plugins and theme vulnerabilities should be scanned and manually tested if there any vulnerable or misconfigured themes and plugins is found. And WordPress core version expressed. If the WordPress version is exposed to the network or the internet, the attacker can be able to find the vulnerabilities which are all available in that version, and it is easy to enumerate or attack on that version using the techniques which are all available. And XML RPC enabled. You have to enable the XML RPC. You have to check if there is XML RPC is enabled or not. And user enumeration. If the user ID APIs are able to enumerate from the internet, the attacker can easily exploit them using that available information, which are all not disclosed. And exposed services. Check for if any exposed services. Is there any backup files were exposed or any WP configures, which is WordPress configurations were exposed in the internet. Analysis and identification. Validity checks, what to analyze, and risk identification. Validation checks. In validation checks, verify vulnerable plugin version. We have to check each and every version, each and every plugins and themes versions or any misconfigured in that versions and themes. And by checking those were separately, the attacker can able to set a backdoor by accessing that plugin or theme of that misconfigured versions. Confirm endpoint accessibility. You have to confirm if there are any possibilities of an attacker to enumerate on the endpoint to check any vulnerabilities found in it. Reproduce the issue manually. You have to manually check the each and every vulnerabilities which are all we have assessed in that audit, and we have to configure it. Cross check CVE detail. You have to cross check with the CVE details which are all available on the internet, and we have to found what are the attacks can be possible in that CVE versions exposed on the internet. and you have to immediately patch that the version should not be disclosed on the internet or any service versions which are all running on our websites or servers, and eliminate false positive. By eliminating the false positive, it is able to improve the efficiency and can reduce our time, and we can able to fix the vulnerabilities which are all truly present in that websites or that server. What to analyze? We have to analyze the scan results from multiple tools. As I have mentioned earlier, you have to run on multiple tools, and we have to analyze the results or output from the several tools, and we have to manually check it if that the vulnerable is available, or it is misconfigured, or is there any outdated versions which are found in it. And plugins and theme vulnerabilities matches. And plugin and theme vulnerability matches, we have to mention, or we have to analyze what are the themes plugins were mentioned in it, and what are the vulnerabilities are found in it, and what can the attackers can do using those vulnerable plugins or themes. And endpoint accessibility as like that wp-login.php, xml-rpc.php, and any WordPress configuration files or WordPress JSON files which is exposed to the internet can be easily compromised by an hacker into the system. And server misconfiguration and headers. And in this, the server if the server is misconfigured, the attacker can easily compromise into our application and be able to breach our data which are all stored in that database. And they have to ensure that their security address are configured correctly, in which each security addresses are most important, which provides several activities and prevent each attacks. It maybe reduces the impact of the attack by the attacker. And risk identification. By analyzing and identifying these are all vulnerabilities, we have to sphere the rank of their vulnerabilities, which is high, medium, and low. High critical exposure. Authorization bypass indicators are mentioned as high severity. In medium, misconfiguration or data exposure. The misconfigured data or outdated versions or any services which are running should not be mentioned or should not be exposed on internet, which is shown in the internet. It can be a medium severity. In low means informational findings, which the services are running and what are the ports open. If the ports were open, is not completely vulnerable, but the services which are all running on that ports may be exposed on the internet. It may be vulnerable. Uh, It's depend on the service and ports which are running on it. And next, reporting and remediation. In reporting, vulnerability reporting is the most important thing. We have to mention all the reporting findings and the vulnerabilities we have found on the audit. It includes the vulnerability name and description. If you found any vulnerabilities such as remote execution or any privilege escalation we have found, or any cross-site scripting or SQL injection, we have to mention that name and the description which are from the CVE, and we have to mention the what are all the impacts on it and the affected component, the plugins affected or theme affected or the core of the website affected, and what activity can be affected by that vulnerability, and what are the severity of it. Is it low, medium, high, or critical? By assigning this severity, the vulnerability can be fixed by these priorities we have mentioned in it. And CVE reference if available. If we found the vulnerabilities which is already exposed, and it can have the CVE reference code where we can able to find the attack vectors and what are the attacks can be possible in that versions, and what are the activities can be done in that vulnerabilities. And proof of concept. In this, the proof of concept is most important to provide on the reporting. While reporting that, the screenshots or the tool output should be mentioned by providing the required and detailed description of the vulnerable we have found on that audit. Remediation recommendation. On remediation recommendation, if the WordPress core is not updated, you have to mention the update WordPress core, plugins, and themes. You have to update the cores and their themes, plugins onto our latest version. Disable unused plugins or themes. By disabling the unused plugins or themes, it it produces more time to spend on the other live or active plugins themes. By disabling them, we can able to focus the other themes on plugins and restrict access to sensitive endpoints. Restricting the access restrict the access to sensitive endpoints such as XML or PC.php or any WordPress configuration files or the JSON files in that website. Implement strong authentication. By implementing strong authentication, the attacker can be find critical to brute force or cause any attack on our website, which may be such as multi-factor authentication, rate limiting, or cryptographic algorithm. By using the cryptographic algorithm, we can prevent the man-in-the-middle attacks or any attacks which can be able to capture the request from the client to the server. By using those algorithm, it's a strong algorithm, we can able to prevent the exposure of data by from sending from client to the server. And next, fix mix configuration. On the remediation recommendation, if the headers are missing or any permissions missing or anything misconfigured in the installation of the WordPress website, you have to mention what were the misconfigures and you have to correct it in the remediation recommendation. And why WordPress is vulnerable? WordPress is itself is not vulnerable, but what are the common vulnerables in WordPress? Extensive plugin ecosystem, outdated core theme and plugins, weak authentication practices, high popularity equal to high threat. At first, extensive plugin ecosystem. Thousands of third-party plugins were available in the WordPress website, and many are outdated or poorly maintained. There are several plugins which can be used and we should be maintained properly and to the correct security patches and updates for that plugins. And outdated core themes and plugins. Delayed updates due to lead to known vulnerabilities. By delaying the updates of our versions, it may lead to the vulnerabilities of CVs, which is common vulnerability exposure, and the attacker can able to compromise the system by knowing the which version is running on it, and easy target for automated scanners. And it is also easy to it is also easy to scan by the automated tools and able to detect the versions or services which are all running on it. And weak authentication practices, weak password, no rate limiting on login, lack of multi-factor authentication. By implementing the strong passwords or any cryptographic algorithms for the authentication practices, it is good for our security purpose. And no rate limiting on login. We have to implement the rate limiting on login or any input fields which sends the data from client side to the server to prevent the attacks. And lack of multi-factor authentication. By assigning the multi-factor authentication, the user can be verified and what kind of user permissions were assigned to that users. And next, high popularity equal to high target. Among all the websites around the worldwide, there are up to 40% WordPress websites were running on WordPress. Up to the total number of CMS websites were dominated by the WordPress website, which is 40%. And automated attacks and botnets. It attracts the automated attacks and bots, which is able to easily compromised by the attackers.
Tools used. Now let's see about the tools used in our WordPress assessment. First, we use WP Scan, which is a specialized tool designed especially for WordPress testing, where WP Scan helps us identify vulnerabilities in plugins and themes, which are actually one of the most common attack points in WordPress upgrade. It also detects issues in WordPress core version and perform user animation, which attacker often use to identify valid username. In our vulnerability assessment, WordPress scan can actually used for the initial scanning. It gave us a clear overview of potential weakness, especially outdated plugins and misconfiguration. Next, WebShoot. WebShoot is one of the most powerful tools used for manual testing. WebShoot allows us to intercept HTTP and HTTPS requests between the browser and the server. This means we can modify requests, reply them, and analyze response in detail. In our vulnerability assessment, WebShoot is used for manual validation. After identifying possible vulnerabilities using automated tools, we use WebShoot to confirm them and test things like authentication issues and input validation. So, overall, WPs can give us speed and automation, while Verb should give us deep manual control, which is used for manual testing and the validation checks. And next tools, dosage and nuclei. Dosage, which is mainly used for discover hidden directories and files in a website. Dosage works using WordPress word list to brute force URLs and file sensitive paths that are not publicly linked. For example, it can help us discover backup files, admin panels, or hidden directories that attacker might exploit. In our vulnerability assessment, Dosage helped us identify hidden vulnerabilities in WordPress directories and locate sensitive or backup files that could exploit a critical data, which leads to the sensitive information disclosure. And Nuclei. Nuclei, which is fast template based vulnerability scanner, which works using predefined templates that detect known vulnerabilities. It is highly automated and scalable, making it very useful for quick scanning. In our WordPress vulnerability assessment, Nuclei was used to validate vulnerabilities found by WordPress scan and also detect additional known issues using its template. So combining these all tools allowed us to cover both hidden attacks surface and known vulnerability efficiently, which in Nuclei can detect the known vulnerabilities or issues using the templates in it. And next, real world impact. First, website defacement. This is when attacker modify the website content which damages the brand reputation and reduces user trust. And the next is data breach. If vulnerabilities are exploited, attackers can gain access to sensitive customer data or user records, which can lead to serious legal and financial consequences. Another major risk is malware injection. Attackers can inject malicious script into the website, turning it into a platform spreading malware or spam, especially for SEO abuse. We also have unauthorized admin access, which is one of the most critical issues. If an attacker gains admin privilege, they can completely control the website. This is often offered to a key to freedom. And last, financial loss. This includes recovery cost, downtime, legal penalties, and direct revenue attack. So these are not just technical issues; they have serious business and real-world consequences. And next, securing WordPress technical recommendations. Based on our finding, here are the key technical recommendations to secure WordPress. First, WordPress is considered a high value target because of its huge market share. This makes it a common target for automated attacks and botnets. So, proactive mitigation is very important. Instead of waiting for attacks, we should regularly scan and fix vulnerabilities before they are exploited. We also recommend a hybrid methodology, combining automated tools for speed and manual testing for accuracy. This gives us better results than relying on just one approach. Another important point is the main attack surface, which is outdated third-party plugins. Studies show that most breaches happen due to vulnerable plugins, so regular updates are critical. We should also follow a defense in depth approach. This means using multiple layers of security like patching, hardening configurations, and continuous monitoring. And last, continuous hardening is necessary where security is not a one-time process. It requires regular audits and updates to stay protected against new and zero-day threats. And next, key takeaways. Main attack surface. Our outdated third-party plugins causes over 80% of breaches, which we have to update the plugins and themes regularly to reduce the attack surface and defense in depth. A layered strategy of patching, hardening, and monitoring have to secure the layers of security to protect our system. And continuous hardening requires regular audit cycles to stay ahead of zero-day threat. Where continuous hardening is the continuous checking or auditing the website before the attackers can exploit the vulnerabilities found in them. And high value target. Primary magnet for global botnets due to massive market share. Because of the WordPress website availability on the internet is huge, so that the botnets are easy for the attack emulation in it. Proactive mitigation. Find and fix vulnerabilities before they are exploited. And hybrid methodology. Automated pass with manual expert validation. This is our learning website, learn.bcbus.io. There are several courses which are available for free. You can learn and take use of it. And next, this is our BCBus WhatsApp channel. You can stay connected with us and follow for more updates. And thank you.